My name is Sam Antics. I'm a coach and a referee with Seattle Derby Brats. I also have a skater in Intermediate 1. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about skates, tools, and then how to clean your wheels, which is a really important skill to have because your parents are going to not want to do it for you. I guarantee that. So I'm just going to go through some stuff really quick here. This is a roller skate. This is a roller derby skate more specifically, and it is specifically designed for roller derby, which has a lot of turns and spills and fast skating and contact, so it's a really sturdy skate. This is the boot. So what you might call a shoe, we call a boot on a skate. And it's really just the part that your foot goes in. All the parts of the boot are about the same as your standard shoe, other than this one, which is called speed strap. You put it over and you cinch it down to after you tie your skate. It's pretty simple to use. It just kind of keeps everything tucked in, keeps your foot snug in the boot so it doesn't slip. This is, what do we call this? We call this a toe cover. Toe cap, yeah. So this is actually doesn't generally come with the skate, but this is something as a protective thing that you can put on the front of your skate. And what it does is it protects the boot. Because you're gonna fall a lot, especially if you've never skated before, but even if you have skated before, falling is part of the game. And so you're gonna scuff this boot up. If you want the boot to stay good and not get any holes or rips, and if you wanna maybe sell them in the future, having a toe cap just protects the toe of that boot. Okay, so that's the top of the skate. That's the part you're gonna be the most familiar with because you're gonna put this skate on and off a million times in your life as a skater. We go down below. This is more the mechanical stuff of the skate. So this is what we call, it's just a skate assembly. So each piece, you may or may not need to know this, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. This is your plate. These plates can come in aluminum, they can come in nylon, there may be other materials, they might even be steel. The nylon ones are gonna be your lightest ones, steel are definitely gonna be heavier. And really, again, most of these are standard on the skates you buy. You don't really need to think too much about it unless you want to start buying really, really advanced derby skates, and then you start thinking about the components. But this is a standard thing, it comes with your boot. You don't really have to think about it too much. These two things here, these are called trucks. So they're same as on a skateboard. If you skateboarded or if you have friends who skateboarded, the trucks are the part that holds the wheel. And in fact, a lot of the parts on here are gonna be so similar to a skateboard assembly that you might even be able to use some of the same tools. Guess what that is? That's a wheel. So the skate wheels are a very important component of your skate. Without these, you're not gonna go anywhere. You really just can't even skate. So there are different types of skate wheels, and I'll talk a little bit about these here. This is your standard indoor skate wheel. These are, they're kind of a medium hardness. They're gonna work on all kinds of different floors, concrete, wood, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna have enough grip that you're not just sliding across the surface like you're an ice skater, but they're not gonna be so grippy that you can't move. So this is a standard skate. Again, this comes usually with the skate that you buy when you get your first pair of skates. You can change skates out. This is an outdoor skate. Right now, Seattle Derby Brats is practicing outside. We're recommending that anybody skates outside either for practice or if you just go to skate in the park, that you get an outdoor wheel. These are a lot softer than these wheels, and they grip a lot more. And when you're out in the outdoors and on the pavement, it's bumpy. There's little bits and stuff of things that can kind of send you spinning. These are gonna grip a little bit better, give you a little bit more stability. These indoor wheels tend to be a little bit more slidey and glidey. You just have less control. If you can get outdoor wheels, definitely recommend it. So that's your standard wheel. Let's see. Oh, and then the other parts, which again, you may or may not know about. On the trucks, we have the kingpin. That's just the piece of, it's like a screw that just holds everything together. And then another very important part of the skate is the toe stop. So the toe stop is the thing that you use to stop, and you can also use it to run. It's a very key tool in derby. So I'm gonna jump into tools here, and then I want to talk a little bit about what you do to get ready for skating. So these are some of the basic tools that I would recommend any skater or skate family have, because you're going to use them just in just general skate maintenance, and then sometimes something comes off and you need to put it back on. So I have a bunch of bearings. So bearings are a really important part of your skate. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we do the skate cleaning. But the bearing is what makes the wheel go. So this is what a bearing looks like. Now these will all look very different. Basically what a bearing is, if you have a fidget spinner, you will have a bearing. You have a bearing set. If you hold the bearing there, it's like a fidget spinner and it spins. Those are the bearings moving. So most bearings have two caps on both sides. Some are open. So that's going to be an important thing. but that's your bearing. I recommend having a spare set of bearings on hand because if a bearing gets smashed, it's not gonna go, and that means your wheel's not gonna turn. So I have a bunch of extra bearings. If you don't have a set and you smash a bearing while you're at a practice or about, ask around. Somebody has a bearing that's gonna fit your skate, and I guarantee they will loan it to you, if not give it to you outright. The other thing I also recommend having extra is the wheel nut. And I didn't talk about that when I was talking about the skate assembly, but this is a wheel nut. It's I don't know what the size is. They're really inexpensive at the hardware store. I have 8 or 10 extras because sometimes when you're changing that skate wheel, which you're gonna see in a minute, that wheel nut goes walkies or rollies and you're never gonna see it again. So if you have extras, it's gonna be really helpful for you to get that wheel back on your skate. Then some tools you wanna have. I have duct tape. Doesn't matter if I'm skating or if I'm just going to a PTSA meeting or I'm going to Starbucks. I always have duct tape because you never know when you need duct tape. So these are the kind of standard everybody should have at skate tools. They all kind of do the same thing. So I'm showing you 3 different versions of it. This one is kind of the one that you'll see a lot of Derby Brat skaters have. It's a Powerdyne, I think it's called a tri-tool or a skate tool. It costs about $30 at the Roller Derby Skate Shop. It's an excellent tool because it can change your wheel nuts. It can work here on the kingpin nut, which actually if you need to adjust the pivot on your truck. And it also can help tighten the toe stop, which we're going to talk about in a second. This is the skate tool that comes with most skates. This is a Rydell skate tool. I think it comes with all the other skates as well. It does the same thing. I personally like to have this little socket. This does exactly the same thing, but what I like about this, and I'll demonstrate when I'm doing the wheel change, what I like about this is it just gives me a little bit extra flexibility to take that thing off, and it's kind of quick. And I also like the sound it makes. Allen wrench set. Most toe stops that you're going to have, if it's a Rydell, it's going to have this kind of a nut to tighten, which will work fine with this. But some of the toe stops you get, this is a Rydell as well, but it's a different skate. So they tighten using a set screw, and so you're going to need an Allen wrench for that because otherwise you're not going to be able to tighten it. So it's tightening against the post of the toe stop. So those are kind of your standard tools. I also have a tool bag. You know, everybody's gonna have their own way of doing stuff. So this is a tool bag that I put all of these tools in. I always know where they are. This is a bearing puller, and we're gonna see this in action in a little while. And it's gonna make getting those bearings out a lot easier. We are gonna do a real quick pre-skate check. So before you skate, anytime before you skate, you wanna check a few things on your skate to make sure that they're ready to go. Even when you're skating in a practice or in a bout, things could go wrong. I see toe stops fall off all the time. It happens and that's fine. Just if it does happen, exit the track quickly and safely, and then go to your bench and hopefully there'll be some tools there that can help you. But here's a few things that you can do to sort of maybe prevent that. The first thing is check your toe stop. Now this is a skate that, you know, if I put this on and would get ready to go, it'd be fine. But to check your toe stop, you wanna turn it. Is it loose? If I can do that very easily, you can see the whole toe cap moving. If I can do that very easily, that is too loose. So the first thing to do is you want to make sure that you just tighten it, you screw the whole toe stop in with your hand until it stops. And it's going to stop when that toe stop nut actually touches the plate. Okay, it's going to stop and it's going to be a little bit of resistance. So you can tighten it as much as you want. I hold the toe cap because if I don't, it'll actually twist it as I twist, and then you're gonna end up with a toe cap like that. Okay, so I just do this until it stops. And I can go a little bit further. You don't wanna kind of tighten this in too much because you don't wanna like put the post all the way up into the skate and then it's too high or it's too, and you can't tighten it with the nut. But that's good. I can't turn it without putting a lot of muscle into it. Then I'm gonna use my handy dandy skate tool. This big wrench here, you just put this around the nut. You want to go in the same direction that you were doing to tighten your toe stop. That right there is pretty tight. I can't move it. I can't move the nut with my fingers. I can't move the toe stop with my fingers. That's going to be a pretty tight toe stop. But you want to make sure that the toe stop is kind of the right direction. And this one actually says front. They won't all say front, but they might. So when it says front, I can see that it's a little bit, it slopes towards the back. And so that's probably how you want to orient your toe stop. To do that, you just loosen the nut enough to where you can actually put it so that front is now on the front of the skate. And what I'm going to do is while I tighten this, I'm actually going to hold this toe stop in place and while I tighten it. So if you look, it shouldn't move. So that's how you check your toe stop. The other things you want to check before you skate is your wheels. Check that they're on there tightly, and you can do that by just wiggling the wheel nut. If it can't move, it's not going to probably loosen on its own. But also, do the wheels spin? So you want to give it a spin. It should spin freely for about 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that wheel is fine. It's got good spin. And then just check all your wheels, because if they're not spinning freely for 5 seconds, it either means the wheel nut's too tight or the bearing is damaged and it's not going to do any good on the track. Make sure your laces are not broken anywhere. Make sure there's not a lot of gunk on your axles around your kingpins, just because it can kind of, again, slow you down. So that's it for a pre-skate check. We're gonna go over how to clean a wheel. So I know it's one of those things that, oh, I gotta clean my wheels. I thought I just got to skate and knock people over and score points. Yeah, you get to do all that, but also if you don't clean your wheels, not only are you gonna potentially damage the bearings and the wheels, but it's gonna make it harder to skate, because the more gunk it gets in there, the slower your wheels are gonna spin and you're not gonna have the control or the speed you want on the track. So this is my skate. These are outdoor wheels. I do also have indoor wheels, but what I want you to see is I want you to see how disgusting and nasty my skates are. So if you look there around the bearing, there's lots of buildup and gunk. Haven't cleaned these wheels in a while. And then you can also look at the axles. These are actually pretty decently clean. Outdoors, they don't collect as much gunk, but I'm gonna tell you, when you're skating indoors, especially if you're skating in a community center gym, they pick up lots of hair and little bits of debris because there's a lot more stuff that just sits in there. So you definitely want to check your axles a lot more frequently. They just don't do it as outdoors as much as my observation. So what we're going to do is we're going to take off the wheels. Now I'm going to do this with one wheel, but you want to do it with all 8 if you're doing this on your own. Obviously not just one, but I'm going to do it for expediency. I'm going to do one. So the tools you need to have: you need a skate with wheels. Soapy water. You need some towels. I would have one dry towel, or one towel that's going to be for wet, one that's going to be for dry. Then you need your skate tool. So this tool is going to be good because it's going to be helping us, whoops, I think it's this one. It's going to help us remove our wheel nuts. I'm actually going to use this in my demonstration, but this is just as good. I'll actually show you how to use that as well. This is really handy to have, a bearing puller. And then just some kind of, I usually have Q-tips as well, and I'll show you why. And then some kind of a bag or receptacle for all of the moving pieces that you don't want to lose. So I'm going to use my tool bag here. This is where I'm going to throw my wheel nuts when I'm not using. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our wheel off. So you can use this, it's a 1/2-inch socket. You can use that and you just loosen it like you would loosen anything. Or if you have this, again, I like this because it makes a nice noise. So this is good because it's just a quick removal. And then as soon as it's finger loose, you can just kind of take it off. And then up close, I want you to see up close how gross these are. So the wheel nut's pretty gross. I'm not as concerned about the wheel nut as I am about that yucky wheel there. And then you can kind of see the axle is a little gross too. I would only just use a dry towel on this to clean the axle. Just kind of do this. You can wait till you have all 4 of your wheels off, or 8 if you're doing both skates at the same time, and just kind of run a clean over the axle. So I'm just going to do that one. So if you want to just do a quick clean of this wheel, you're fine to, but don't use water. The reason is bearings, you don't want them anywhere near anything water, anything wet, because if they get wet, those bearings will rust, and then you no longer, the bearings, you damage those bearings, you have to get new bearings. So, but if you need to just do a quick clean, you can just take your towel, you wipe off the skate, you wipe off the bearing, you wipe off the bearing, and you can even see, actually I'll just kind of do it, you can even see just a quick wipe actually helps take a lot off. So that's what I just wiped off there. So even just a towel wipe is fine. But I want to get inside. I don't want to just do a surface. I want to get inside. So this is the front side and this is the back side. There are 2 bearings per wheel. So if I do this, you can watch, it slides right in. And now I can't pull it out easily. So to get this out, you have to really pull it. And so you have to kind of get in there and it comes out like that, okay? So the first thing I do when I get those bearings out is I check them to make sure they're okay. And to check a bearing, just like you check your wheel, you spin the bearing and you count for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's still spinning. That means that bearing's good. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my water. So I'm going to get a wet towel. And I'm going to have a dry side and a wet side, because under no circumstances should these bearings get wet. If they get wet, those little bearings in there, the bearing casings, the bearings in there will freeze up and rust up, and they won't go. So I'm gonna put those over there. And I'm gonna, the wheel is okay to get wet. So I'm gonna start with the wheel because I want to get it wet and then have time to dry before I put it back on my skate and come into contact with the bearings. So I've just got my wet towel and I'm just gonna wipe it off. Simple. This is just like you're washing the dish, right? And then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna get my finger in that towel and I'm gonna go inside the bearing well. So you can see inside there, I got it cleaner, and then you can get, if you really want to get a deep clean, you can get in there with a Q-tip. I'm not gonna worry about that right now. So I'm gonna give that a good wipe. That's clean enough for now. I'm gonna set that there, I'm gonna let that dry. And I'm gonna do that to all 8 wheels so that they're all over here drying. Then I'm gonna go to the bearings. Bearings, completely stay away from the wet side. So here's my bearing, and I'm gonna do basically what I just did with the wheel. I'm gonna take my dry towel, and I'm gonna wipe off the bearing. Like that. So I'm just kind of wiping it, I'm wiping it. Kind of use my finger to get in there. And this is where I'm gonna pull out the Q-tip, because I'm gonna go on the inside. I'm just gonna do this. You can kind of see the dirt there, getting all that dirt out. Kind of like that, maybe running along the surface. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the other bearing. Wipe it off. Get the other end of the Q-tip that's not dirty yet. I'm going here, going here. So now I'm ready to put my wheel back together, wheels, if I had done all 8. I would do that with all 16 of my bearings. You don't have to keep them in the same wheel if you don't want, but I would check each bearing. Since you have them out, check them and make sure they're good. So we're just gonna do the reverse of what we did before, making sure that this part, the cap where you can actually see the bearings, goes on the inside. All right, so I'm gonna take that bearing, and you could probably pop it back in there with your fingers. I usually just figure, I've got this fun tool, I'm gonna go ahead and use this tool. So you get it in there, and you just push down on it, don't push the plunger, because that's gonna release those pins and it's not gonna go in. Just kind of push down on it until it feels like it kind of snaps in place. I'm gonna release it, and it looks like it snapped in place. And then just test it. Once you've got both bearings in there, do the 5-second test. All right, so we got a good spin. And that is how you clean a wheel. But it goes right back on the axle like that. Obviously the flat part goes on the inside. If you have all 8 wheels off, you might actually not remember that, but the flat side of this is always gonna go on the inside. On these wheels, they're not quite, I mean, they're a little bit different, but the writing is almost always on the outside. So once I've got that on there, I'm gonna go in here and get my wheel nut, put my wheel nut on there, and I'm just gonna go until it's finger tight. Okay, so that's about as much as I can turn without a tool. Now, it's not tight enough now because look at my wheel has got a lot of play there. What I want it to be is, if it has any play at all, I want it to have very little play. What I mean by play is that it can kind of go up and down on the axle. Okay, so if you look at that one and you look at that one, the sound alone is a little bit different. So I don't want it to be too loose, but if you tighten it down until it can't go anymore, I could probably turn it down more, but I don't want to go anymore. The reason I don't want to go anymore is because if you push down too hard on that wheel nut, it will actually smush the bearings between the axle and the wheel nut, and it actually compress. It could bend these caps, and if these caps are bent, they're touching the bearings. Bearings aren't going to spin, so you just damaged that bearing. So that feels like a pretty good. It doesn't have much play. Again, I'm going to do the wheel test. All right, so that's on there, good. And then I would just do that with all the other 8 wheels. And that's pretty much all there is to cleaning up a skate. Yeah, I think that's it.